All right, sorry for the little delay there. My OBS software, which I'm using with, again, a Fujifilm X-T3 in front of me, was hanging up a little bit using the Camlink 4K, but everything's good now. We are up and running. So, welcome to the live discussion. I don't know if anyone is here right now. If we can start getting some people. All right, let's see. If you guys are here, once people start logging in, we'll start things off. We'll give it a few minutes, and then we'll go from there. See if we can get some people to type in, and we'll check things out. Let me see if I can get a bigger screen here. Just because I'd like to have more of a screen to kind of go off of things so I can type a little bit better. Let's see. Go to my channel. That might be the best thing to do. Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. There's some people coming in now. All right, great. Sorry about that. Let me take that off so it doesn't hang up. I'm just going to go to the smaller view. I wish I could make this one screen a little bit bigger. I know that this is kind of off the topic here, but okay, cool. Mario, thank you. Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Cool. So I'll start this off right now. The other night we did a live, and there's always questions coming in, and it seems like most of the questions that are coming in are always about Fujifilm cameras. I predominantly shoot Fujifilm, for those who know that already. We got a quick question coming in before we start off. Let's see, Mario. I sold all my Nikon gear for the GFX-R. It's been the best camera on earth. I can definitely say that the GFX system is an amazing camera. It all depends on what you're shooting, obviously. If you're shooting portrait work, landscape work, formal, portraits, fine art, photography, yes, it could be amazing. If you're trying to shoot sports or anything fast, events, it's a little slow. Autofocus is a little lacking. I have the 50S with the 63. I adapt a lot of lenses to this camera, but yes, it is a fantastic camera. But real quick, no, I have the 50S. But real quick, before I get into specific gear and cameras, which we will definitely get into tonight, that is definitely something that I want to go over. I wanted to create this live stream so I can connect with everybody out there if they have questions in regards to camera gear and what they kind of want to touch on, but also just to kind of give you an overview of Fuji gear in general. Like I said, I get a lot of questions in regards to Fuji, why I use the system, what is it about their cameras compared to others, what cameras do I own, what cameras do I consistently use, and what do I use them for, and also some examples of the work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some cameras, and I'm going to go through some of the strengths and weaknesses of each, and then I'm going to bring up my Lightroom folder and kind of go off of that and give you some examples of work that I've done with each system. And by all means, shoot your questions in. I see Mario is doing that. Do I own the 110? No, I do not own the 110. I know a few people that do own the 110, and it is probably a fantastic lens. I own the 63, and then other than that, I adapt a lot of glass to it. I adapt the Fuji 135 f2, and I adapt the 40mm Pancake from Canon. I said Fuji 135. I meant the Canon 135 f2, and I shoot the Canon 85 1.2. So I adapt a lot of lenses to it, and those are the ones that I adapt to it. I really like the look of the 85 f2. I'm hoping that Fuji releases an 80mm 1.9 maybe. I have heard rumors that we will be getting a lens like that. I have no idea what it's going to cost. It's probably going to be crazy, but nonetheless, it is a fantastic camera and a fantastic lens combination. I'm trying to see if I can even, let me bring this up real quick while I talk with you guys, because I might be able to locate obviously examples of what I'm talking about while I'm on here with you. Give me 1 second. I'm just readjusting some windows here. I'm not in a rush. Again, I don't have a specific game plan for tonight. It was more or less to get on here and chat with you guys and basically just cover, you know, the world of Fuji. And obviously, there are a lot of people that have love for this camera system. I shoot everything else as well, but I will bring up an 85 1.2L photo with the GFX. Give me 1 second. I'm going to get to that right now. One of my favorites, and it was from a family portrait session. Let me see, where is it? Okay, here it is. Is this the one I want to bring up, or is it this one? This one. Okay. Okay, so let me bring this over here. Sorry, I'm flopping windows around. Bring this smaller. Let me bring my OBS a little smaller. If you guys don't know what OBS is, it's off broadcasting system, and that just allows me to do screen capture because, again, as cool as this stuff really is, it can be kind of a pain in the butt if I'm trying to do screen capture with anything else. So is it the whole sensor? Yes, the 85mm does cover the entire sensor, and I'm going to pop up an example real quick for you guys. Let me just drag this out over everything, and so I'm going to go to right here. So a Fuji develop and okay, so this here is a Canon 85 1.2L with the GFX 50S using a TechArt AF adapter. It's a very small adapter which transmits all of the data, so all your metadata, and it will also give you the aperture functionality with Canon glass. And this is full readout, so full frame, no crop, just, you know, adjusted the horizon, minor vignette correction, and this might be shot at f2, so this isn't even at 51.2. This is at f2, and as you can see, plenty sharp, beautiful rendition, beautiful depth of field, and it really lends itself well to that really large format look. Even more than medium format, almost large format. And that's just because, again, you're using such a shallow depth of field on the sensor. And from the most part, Canon glass has been wonderful as a lower cost alternative to get yourself some different focal lengths when it comes to the Fuji GFX system. So again, just something to think about. It is a fantastic, really cool looking rendition lens. Same thing here. GFX 50, and let me get rid of that. Again, GFX 50S 85mm Canon 1.2L, and this is probably again shot at f2. I usually shoot it at f2 only to give myself a little more depth of field, because it can be razor thin. If I go to, let me show you, I'm actually going to show you 1.2 L shot in a second. Let me get over. So I just put one up the other day. I actually did like a little comparison with my daughter. Oh, went a little too far. Here we go. This is the 85. Okay, this is 85 again, and this is at f2 as well. So again, f2, you can see that depth of field just melt away, and you can see up here on the upper left on my Lightroom catalog, 85mm 1.2 L, but it's at f2. But I do have one at 1.2, and I believe it is it this one? Might be this one. Nope, that's the Mamiya 80. Okay, so this is 85mm 1.2 at 1.2, and that is pretty wild looking. So early on in the session here, talking about the GFX 50mm GFX 50S medium format camera, and this is again Canon 85mm adapted glass, full AF, IAF, facial tracking, full manipulation of the aperture blades, so you can stop it down, and anything else you want. But yes, that is the Canon. And again, conversely, if you want to go super cheap and just give yourself some more leeway and more focal length images, you can certainly do that. And this is a Canon 40mm Pancake lens, which you can pick up all day long for oh god, I think $150 to $200. And again, full autofocus, razor sharp, covers the sensor just fine. 40mm 2.8 Pancake lens. I actually have it right now on my original Canon 5D. So this little lens right here, believe it or not, I'll just go to real quick so you guys can see this a little bit better. This little lens right here will cover the GFX. It'll cover it just fine. It'll give you autofocus. It makes for a very, very small, lightweight package. 40mm, which is close to, I think, like 30. So it opens it up a little bit, and this is a great wide angle style lens, and it's very sharp, and it renders the GFX pretty good. So definitely no complaints when it comes to that. So let's see, Mario. Medium format and Fujifilm cameras rule supreme in 2020 and beyond. Fujifilm has definitely cemented themselves well within the market when it comes to digital medium format cameras. I've owned Phase 1, P40 back. I've owned Mamiya Leaf, and I've owned the Fuji system. Sure, some of the phase 1 megapixel 100s and everything else are incredible, but for the price that you really need to pay to even get into that system, to me, it just doesn't, it's not beneficial. Yes, some of them can be full frame at 645, whereas the GFX is not a true 645. But at the end of the day, it's all about the pixel depth. It's about how well the files render out. And again, I've shot this camera comfortably at 6400, 8000. I've even taken shots at 12,500, and I've not been disappointed with it at all. So it's hard for me to say that anything else is really kind of worth diving into when it comes to that kind of price range. I'm trying to pull up let me see if I can pull up this one image. See if I can find it. Actually, I don't know that I'll be able to. Sorry, I'm here. I'm paying attention. Am I going to get the XT4? Most likely not. And the reason being is that the XT3 is fine for me in the work that I do with it. I'm not a huge XT3 shooter. I have the XT3 for the video functionality, and I do enjoy it, but it's not my go-to camera, and it doesn't inspire a lot of passion for me. So I don't really use it as much as I should. I use it professionally at times, but more often than not, I'm shooting for my own personal work, and it just hasn't been something that I felt I needed to upgrade. I think there's benefits for it. I think having the IBIS is a great thing. I think some of the video functionality could be really a step up for those that are shooting video professionally. Most of the videos that I do are these kind of things where I'm doing YouTube, I'm doing webcam stuff, I'm doing B-roll for YouTube videos. So I don't need anything more than 4K, and I hardly don't even need 4K. Most of my YouTube videos are shot in 1080p. So I do see the need for it. I do like the fact that it has a flip out screen. My Canon EOS R has a flip out screen. I think the next digital SLR style body that I buy would be an upgraded Canon R. So whatever the R5 or whatever that is that they're going to be coming out with, just to expand off of that system. But I have enough Fuji cameras, and they're all in front of me right now, just off camera. You guys can't see them. And we'll definitely get into those. So yeah, we kind of dug into the GFX system a little bit, but again, I think the newest camera that everybody has been talking about, and I've made a few videos on it already so far, and they've been well received, and it always gets a lot of traffic, and that's the brand new X100V. Now, the X100V is Canon's, Nikon, we were just talking about Canon. Nikon, Fuji's newest version of the X100 series. And like I said in my first review of the camera, it is, the best way I can describe it is it's refined. It's completely refined from the older X100F. The X100F is still a fantastic camera in its own right. You can pick these up all day long, cheap, $700-800 I've seen them for, where you're going to spend a little bit more for this, but this does have more functionality. You are getting a flip out screen, better resolution, you're getting the newer sensor, you're getting better autofocus, better low light autofocus, you're getting your classic negative simulation, you're getting a more finished off body, better knobs, and you're getting a fantastic lens now. This lens is light years better than the X100F lens. And since we're talking about that, 100V. I will bring up some photos of the 100V and just to go over some things. So let me bring this back over on. So the X100V, again, beautiful camera. The lens was amazing. This was ISO 4000 at f2.2. Just, you know, again, low light situation. Nothing crazy. Just taking some textured shots of a parking lot just to check out the sensor and the low light images. Obviously, these are edited. If I give you the before, I got to go up into the development module to show you that. Obviously, I put my own spin on things, but, you know, the before shot and the after. Wait for this to render out because I got a lot of things running right now on the screen. And the after. Again, this, people have asked me a little bit. I saw some articles about how well the TCL works on the X100F, and it works just fine. It fits just fine. There's no loss of resolution in the image at all. Before, see if I can get the before. Everything's running a little slow right now. I apologize. I got a lot of stuff going on, and, you know, obviously my edit afterwards will kick in a second. But this is with the TCL. Very sharp. I can probably go 1-to-1 on this for you guys. Still rendering. There you go. 1-to-1 TCL. It's a very sharp lens, and the TCL doesn't do any harm to the image quality whatsoever. So, yeah, again, the beauty about this new X100F is the flip out screen too. You know, you never realize how much you really needed a flip out screen or how useful it really is until you start shooting with one. It was always one of my minor gripes when it came to the X100F, was the fact that it lacked the flip down screen. I just think it's just an awesome thing to have. Again, low light shooting with the X100V. You know, obviously these are processed with some of my presets that I use. But again, I figured while I'm talking about some of these cameras, I'll go through some examples and show you some of the stuff that I've shot with them. Again, I get on this a little bit of a, you know, platform sometimes, and I take it serious, where I say it a million times that there are a lot of YouTube personalities that will speak on camera about certain cameras, but they never show you any work that they've done with them, and that was something that I always felt was not the right thing to do. I think it makes you lose any kind of integrity when it comes to your opinion. And again, why should I spend my money off something that you're telling me to buy when I can't see the body of work that you've shot with it? So I never wanted to come off that way and do that. As a photographer, as somebody on YouTube, I always felt that I had a responsibility to thoroughly test each piece of gear that I'm using in order to make an educated statement in regards to its functionality. Is it going to be the camera to be all cameras? No, but I don't know that there is a camera that can do that. People try to pigeonhole cameras into like a one-trick pony, and that's kind of, you know, not what they are. Every camera has its strengths and weaknesses. You know, is this a professional, you know, shoot an all-day wedding? You can do it. It's not the best for it. Is this a portrait camera? You can do it. It's not the best for it. Is this a street camera? Yes, it's the best for it. So that's where the strength lies. The strength lies with this camera being a small, compact powerhouse that is right at home in street photography, and also, great as a travel size camera too. So, Mario, do I use the X100V for pro work? Minor pro work. Little grab shots if I'm shooting a wedding, little candid stuff. I've done it where with the X100F, I've put it on a large beam pole and I've jacked it all the way up to the ceiling of like a dance floor, and I've used my Fuji app as a trigger, and I would shoot down on the dance floor. I've done it that way, but no, this isn't something that's strapped to me and I'm taking grabs all day with it. But it is a great camera for just certain things. Candid shots too. Ken Rockwell does a great review on the X. I have not read Ken's review on it. He's always pretty in depth with what he does, and at least he shares some photos, which is more than I can say from some other people. And I think that's I think it's not being genuine. It's hard for me to believe what you're telling me, and that you're not just getting paid by the company. You're getting free perks from the company if I can't see your body of work. So again, what you're seeing up on the screen right now as I go through these are all X100V shots. Obviously some of these are edited, to my liking, but again, final product, these are the kind of results that you could expect if you pick up an X100V. Let me just get to some of the normal size photos. Some of these again have color grades on them and whatnot, but if I give you a example of the raw file, straight out of camera, it's coming up. It's just taking a while because I got a lot going. And this is just the raw image from the 100V. Very sharp indeed. Black and whites, beautiful. But let me see if I can get to you one of the sharper images so you can really see the lens. Yeah, I really enjoyed the camera, more so now wide open than I ever have because of the way the new lens is. This I don't even think I edited that much, so let me see the before and the after. Yeah, so that's straight out of camera, and this is with a little pump in color. Any overheating problems with on it these days? No, not at all. Again, I'm not a huge video shooter. I have shot video with this camera, more so quick clips and B-roll. Never experienced any kind of problem. As far as overheating when I'm shooting pictures, never. And I'm definitely keeping the camera on. I'm shooting some consecutive shots, something like this where, my niece is pouring some sand out of her hands. That, these are all on continuous AF. But no, never any kind of overheating issues whatsoever to worry about. So, yeah, like I said, this, right now, here's a raw file coming up, Mario. That's the raw file. So, that's straight out of camera. That's the 100V. It's a RAW file. The shutter speed was, looks like 1/5400th of a second at f2, ISO 160. That's it right there. When I add my color grade to it just to warm it up a little bit, there it is. Again, let's get you over to something a little bit, non-skin tones, just like a landscape shot. And here will be the raw coming in. There's the raw. That's straight in. That's the RAW file straight in. You know, me just adding some saturation to it, and you can see all my settings on the right, and there it is. Just the ability for this camera to be so flexible, and all the GFXs, I mean, all the Fuji systems as well. I mean, the sensor is just a beautiful thing. So is the weather hot or cold? Over this day, it was a little cooler out on the beach, but not too bad. But this day right here was 74 degrees, and this is the day that I shot video. So, you know, if you go to my YouTube channel and check out shooting the X100V, the opening sequence is 4K 60 slowed down a little bit, and that's with the X100V. This is the raw file coming in. I'm going to show you the before raw. That's the before raw file. That's straight Fuji color right off the raw file. And this is with my edit using basically just basic slider panel and just adding some of Adobe's version of Classic Negative, going over to the in-camera right here and choosing Classic Negative and just color balancing and going from there. Again, you know, straight out, this is Classic Negative, X100F. This is at f11, 1/20th of a second, 320. It's a beautiful camera. And again, to be able to go so crisp and so colorful, and then using the same camera to go soft and delicate. Again, this is heavily edited with my my preset collection, matte collection. But if I give you the raw file, there's the raw, and this is after my edit. So you can see also that there's a lot of leeway in the highlights. I mean, the window is blown out to compensate for some of the shadow, so I can pick off some of the shadow in that pillow area and in my daughter's face, but it's easily recoverable. I mean, the dynamic range is very nice on this new sensor. Have I used any filter? As far as a screw-on filter on the front, I have used a filter on the front. I often use a black Pro Mist filter when I shoot at night. So I'll use the Tiffin Black Pro Mist filter to shoot at night, just to soften the highlights, the transition between light and dark, shadows and highlights, and to give it a filmic view. But other than that, no, I just have in front of mine, I have just a UV filter just as a protector layer. And that's basically it. When I shoot the camera, I will shoot RAW plus JPEG, and I will shoot, whatever simulation that I feel up for that day. But I always edit RAWs, and I usually hardly ever post JPEGs. So all the files that you see here are, edited RAW files using, for the most part, Fuji's simulations, except for, these that you're seeing here are obviously my own, simulations that I have on my website. So it's not a 2-stop ND filter anymore. I believe now it is a 3-stop ND filter. And have I used it? I have used it a little bit. I have used it more on the X100F, but just because I had the X100F for a few years. Yes, it is useful. It's useful I find it useful for creative measures, and if I don't want to run into the electronic shutter. Because all of you know that if you run into the electronic shutter for any kind of movement shots, you can be facing rolling shutter, and you'll get a real skewed version of your subject. So I try to stay out of electronic shutter as much as possible. And I do use it to convey movement. For instance, I can jack my ISO down to 100, F11, F16 on a bright sunny day, put in the ND stop activate the ND stop, and you know, get my shutter speed down to like a 15th and do panning shots or capture, you know, water, you know, trickling and giving that smooth, smoky look of water. So, yes, I do use a clear UV filter. Like I said, I use the B&W F Pro UV filters. I don't know if this will focus out for you guys, but yes, I just screw it right on the front with the adapter ring, and I use a JJC. And the reason why I use the JJC is because I want to be able to get to my filter really quick to change it out between this and the Black Pro Mist at night. So I'm not sure if it is 4 stops in camera. I could be wrong. I thought it was 3. I thought it went from 2 to 3. If it's 4, that's great. You may be right. I'm not telling you you're wrong. I thought it was 3 stops. But either way, yes, it is a great function to have. Just a simple flash shot right here. You know, just using the flash at night. Actually, like a dusk scenario. But again, I mean, this is a nothing shot. This was me just playing with it and making sure that, you know, all the functionality was working just fine, and just trying to keep some of the background. But again, if you were on vacation and you were just taking snaps of your family, this would work out just fine. And again, that was at ISO 640, 1/80th at 5.6. Another beautiful thing, as you guys know, it's a leaf shutter, so we can flash sync at any speed. Sensor yields some beautiful colors, and one of my favorites from that day. This is the X100F, and this was probably, let's see. Oop. I'm doing all kinds of stuff to it now. Don't know what it did here. Trying to escape it. Well, I'm all over the place. Let me exit out of this so I can work on this real quick. Any chance to compare the camera to a Leica M10 with a 35 millimeter? Sure. As soon as I get out of my Lightroom panel that I seem to get myself stuck into here, let me quit this. I don't know what I did. I hit the wrong forward-backward button, and it ended up putting my whole Lightroom into a lockup mode here. You know, comparing the two, the Leica M10, you know, obviously at first glance you can see it's definitely a smaller camera, but not by much. It's definitely a little smaller. As far as shooting, let me collect my thoughts here in a second. Let me just put this back over here, and get back into what I was shooting. Sorry. I'm trying to get back to where I was here, because now I'm all over the place. This is okay. Yeah. Listen, there's all kinds of things that can be said between comparing cameras like a Leica compared to a Fuji system, and it comes down to a couple things. Let me just bring up an image from the Leica. Let's see if I can go into this again. So let me bring this screen capture over. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I'm sorry, I'm kind of juggling things around here. So this is a Leica image, 35 millimeter, 1.4. All right, so how do I go about this? All right, with the very obvious issues of the X100F being a very high speed, high focusing, a fast focusing, flip out screen, Wi-Fi, IAF. If you take all that and you shoot it next to a Leica, the Leica looks like a dinosaur. Image quality, if you want to disregard full frame versus APS-C, which in my mind, after shooting both for many years, is negligible and not really a huge deal at all, especially now with the sensors that Fujifilm is packing into their cameras. So if you take away the obvious full frame, speed, size of the camera, build quality, and price, they're not comparable. And the reason why I say they're not comparable is this is fast focusing, that's manual focusing. So they can't even be compared in focusing speeds. This has tracking modes. The Leica does not have tracking modes. This is 26 megapixels. The Leica's 24 megapixels. The Leica's full frame. This is APS-C. So we know all that. This is built beautifully, but it's not built anything close to what a Leica is built like. The Leica, you pick it up, it's a monster. And it's heavy, but it's so perfectly machined and well made that you can understand why they cost what they cost. And people will say, well, a Leica is a rich man's camera, only, self-absorbed pompous idiots will shoot a Leica, I don't need that Leica. No, you don't. You don't need the Leica at all. But if you shoot a Leica, there's a reason why you shoot it. The reason why you shoot a Leica is for the experience. The colors are beautiful. The images are beautiful. The files, you can see, this is just obviously one small example, but the files coming from a Leica are gorgeous. This is, images of my daughter with the 50 millimeter Summicron. Absolutely a gorgeous camera to use. You shoot the Leica for the experience. You shoot the Leica to concentrate on your photography. It's not going to do much for you. Yes, it has aperture priority. Yes, it has, auto ISO. But you have to meter correctly. When I shoot portraits, I do use an EVF. I use the VisoFlex that goes on top and it flips up. So I can use the little VisoFlex because, to be honest with you, when you're shooting something like a 75 millimeter 1.25, it's so hard to get anything in focus in the focusing patch. So the Leica makes you work for it, but it's also very rewarding when you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish shooting the Leica. What do I like the Leica for as well? I love it for street work. So I didn't really want to turn this into a whole Leica thing because we were talking about Fujifilm, but again, just to talk about Leica and Leica imagery. Yeah, I mean the files are beautiful. Wait for this to render out. Obviously, this has a nice color grade on it. This is Cinestill 800T with a Leica M10. So, again, I don't know to compare. I definitely will do a comparison if people really want to hear about that. But I also feel that people that are shopping for this camera are not being stuck in a position where they're like, wow, do I buy this or do I buy an M10? Like, okay, do I spend, $1,500 or do I spend $7,000 or $8,000? Like, it's not even a thing of what you're going to do. I feel like a more fair position might be like, do I buy this or do I buy a Leica Q? Because to be honest with you, I've always been an X100 fan, but the Leica Q piques my interest only because I love this camera so much. And I feel like those two could be more comparable because now we're looking at a fixed lens versus a fixed lens, a mirrorless camera versus a mirrorless camera. Focal length is a little different, but 35 compared to 28 is not a huge, it is a huge deal, but it's not a huge deal, if you know what I mean. Face tracking, all that touchscreen, like those to me seem like more of a comparable type of thing. Or even for that matter, the X Pro 3. The X Pro 3 is, again, one of those cameras where I feel like falls in between owning a Leica M10 and owning a Fujifilm. And the reason why I say that is because it's still giving you this little trick in the back where it wants you to, be a pure photographer. It wants you to concentrate on taking images rather than staring at your LCD the entire time. So this might be more of a fair comparison between this and the Leica M10, and I actually shot both of them side by side. And they are comparable. I was happy with the Leica, but I guess the Ricoh GR3 is more comparable to the Fuji. The Ricoh GR3, again, fantastic camera, but still not the same thing. Size-wise, a lot smaller, a lot thinner, a lot more pocketable. This camera is a beast of a camera that is posing as a point-and-shoot toy. Anybody that sees this camera out and about is like, oh, look at that little clicker. But it is a beast of a camera. It's still not as easy to use as the X100F because you have to menu dive for certain things and whatnot. This is more of a photographer's camera, where this is more of a pocket powerhouse. You can do there are amazing photographers that come to mind when I think of this camera, and I shoot this camera often. I've done a video on it. It is an amazing camera. But this is my camera if I'm like, oh yeah, let me run out the door real quick and put this in my pants pocket, or let me throw it in my shorts, or hey, I'm going to the beach. I could just stick it in the beach bag and just have a solid camera that isn't a cell phone that takes phenomenal images and gives me good color depth rendition raw files. This is when I'm like, I'm going out to take photos. I'm going out to be a photographer. This is like, I'm a photographer, but I just need a camera with me, if that kind of makes sense. Again, you would be certainly happy to own that camera. I would get rid of my X100F if I were to get an X Pro 3 or a Q. Yeah, my X100F, I've toyed with getting rid of it, and I probably will. However, my daughter seems to start having an interest in photography, so I can see myself just, letting her tag along with it and using it. And it's kind of redundant because I have the X Pro 2 as well as the X Pro 3, so I don't really need all these older versions. However, I do like using old versions of cameras, and that's why I still keep my X Pro 1. My X Pro 1, I love my X Pro 1. It has fantastic image quality, and it still can, if you take away autofocus and you take away some of the newer luxury, so to speak, features that the newer cameras have, you can, these are X100 X Pro 1 images. And again, you know, a before and after, you know, the raw files on this thing are absolutely stunning. And everybody says that the X100 or the X Pro 1 has a beautiful magical sensor, and they're not wrong. I mean, this is obviously, I pumped up the color, but this is straight out of camera. That's the raw, straight out of camera. The JPEG's even better because it has that color profile baked in. But again, a beautiful color file that comes out, and the blues are beautiful when it comes to this camera, and black and whites. Black and whites really sing this camera. So, you know, give you the raw, straight out of camera when it comes in. I apologize, everything's so slow. Oh, this was the raw. You know, the raw file, and you know, my color correction. That's the raw. This is me just playing around, seeing how sharp the lens is. This was using the 35mm 1.2, or I'm sorry, 35 f2 on the X Pro 1. Yeah, I you know, I love the X Pro 3, but that Q, I really am interested in trying out that Q. When you go to do mainly street photography, which is your go-to camera if you could only bring one? If I could only bring one, it would probably be the X100F, or the X100V, only for a few reasons. One, when I'm doing street photography, I do not want to be bogged down by lens decisions. A few months back, maybe a little bit longer than that, last summer I did a video. You can go on my page, YouTube channel, and see New York City street photography, and I shot an X Pro 1 and an X Pro 2, and I shot the 16 2.8 and the 35 1.4, and it was fine, but it's too much. It's too many lenses. And that was only 2 lenses, 2 cameras, and I was specifically doing that just to shoot 2 as a comparison and see how well they they compare to each other and complement each other. But I don't want to be bogged down by lens choices. I want to bring one camera, maybe my black pro mist filter for some night images, and I want to bring a slew of batteries and a couple memory cards, and I just want to put them in a small Domke bag and just go out and shoot and just say, this is what I have, I got to make it work. And I always make it work. It's not a problem. I'm a prime shooter anyway, so I don't want to have all these decisions and then start second guessing myself if I made the right choice or if I should have brought something else. If I didn't bring this and I wanted to stay with autofocus, I bring the X Pro 3 with the 18mm. I love my 18mm. A lot of people hate that lens, but it is an amazing lens, and yeah, I would bring this. If I really want to slow down and I want to get myself into that slow, methodical way of shooting, I bring my Leica and zone focus. And so it all comes down to if I want to just AF or if I want to, work on something different. And, I often shoot the Leica in the city and street photography, and it's an absolutely fantastic camera once you learn how to zone focus. Vans, thank you for joining. If I get it, I had a 5D Classic on the shelf until I broke it. Yeah, I have 2 5Ds, and again, I'll bring that up right now. An absolutely fantastic camera for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about. We're talking about the Canon 5D Classic, the Mark I, the original. I just showed it before. Here it is. This image that you see on screen is the 5D Classic image. This was I'll bring you up the raw file, and the raw files are absolutely astonishing in this camera. And you're talking about a 2007 12 megapixel camera, which back in the day was $3,500, and you can pick them up all day long now for $175. The last one I got was $150 to $250 to $300. So and again, it goes back to, you know, I'm over here talking about all these cameras and I have the nicest stuff, but you don't need the brand new camera. You can do wonders with an X Pro 1. You can do wonders with the Canon 5D. And so if you're new to photography, don't rush out and just go over to the electronics store and buy, you know, a kit camera with, the simple 18 to 55 lens. And I would suggest not doing that. I would suggest spending less money and buying a professional grade camera that you can really beat up, a full frame. Look for a Canon Mark II for $500. Look for a Mark I for $125 to $300, and buy yourself a nice 50 millimeter 1.4. Now, if we're talking about Fuji, look for an X100F. But if you're starting out in photography, you may not know where your focal length really lies and what you enjoy the most. So I would say maybe start out and buy an X Pro 2, or maybe buy an XT2, or even an X100. And then, buy yourself a nice prime lens. Start at the 35 1.4 and see if that feels a little too cramped or you think you need more. Or buy the 35 f2. But you can find the 35 1.4 used for a good price, and it's a fantastic lens. So there are deals out there. I just wouldn't always rush out and think that you need, the XT4 if you are not well versed in the Fuji system or photography as a whole, because there's going to be a slew of features there that you're not going to know about focus stacking or maybe even bracketing. You may not even dial in your film simulations. We had a lot of people, they got their brand new X Pro 3 and they're asking questions where, I'm happy to answer your questions even on the groups, but you're asking questions that that really anybody that spent some time in the Fuji system could have easily figured out, but it just goes to show that you're not well versed in the camera. And it's like, why did you go out and, now some people have disposable income and that doesn't really matter, but why did you spend so much money on a camera that you don't even know what you need yet? When I first went over to Fujifilm, I wasn't all in. I was seriously like, I don't know. And I bought this. And I still am friendly with the guy that sold this to me. And I think I bought this for $200 or maybe $300. Years ago, I bought the X Pro 1 and I took a couple shots with it and I go, okay, I see what this is about. Immediately went out and got an X Pro 2 and then an XT2. And so there was my foray into, shooting Fujifilm. And then I started buying the X100 series all through the lineup. And I sold a couple of them, and I wasn't always happy with this camera. When I had the X100, I believe S, I was not happy with it. Then I bought the T, got a little bit better, sold it, got the X100F, and I fell in love with the X100 series. And then I said, this is a no-brainer when you come out with the V. And I had a wish list, and you guys can see it. It was months ago when they announced the X100 series was going to be made, the newest version. They didn't know what it was called yet. People were saying X100T or X200 or the X100V. I gave my predictions and my wish list, and they pretty much nailed all of it. The only thing that they didn't do, which I would have loved to see them do, is use the same coatings that they made on the X Pro. So could you imagine if they would have made this out of titanium and gave me this kind of look? This camera in this style with coating, it would have been beautiful. But other than that, they even went down and fixed the stupid battery door, which I couldn't stand. I hated this battery door on the X100F, and they even fixed it. So they've done their homework, and they did a good job with it. So it's a good conversation. I'm glad everybody's still on and enjoying the talk. Let me see if I got anything else. We'll go into the X Pro 3 a little bit. A lot of people have hate on the X Pro 3 because they went out with the rear screen the way that they did. To me, it's a non-issue. I really enjoy the X Pro 3. It was the first camera that I owned that had the classic negative, and it is a fun film simulation, but I wasn't always 100% sold on it. It was kind of tough to dial in. Rob, when you go out and do street, what's the plan? Do you have a shot in mind for the day, or just wing it and see where you end up? Also, what random pick would you say is your all-time favorite? So, no, most of my street photography has been done with my family with me. Oftentimes when I take trips to New York City or Philadelphia, I'm usually with my wife, or my wife and my daughter, or even sometimes my nieces and my brother and sister-in-law, and I always have a camera on me, so I'm literally taking shots as I'm moving. So sometimes it's tough. I don't really stake out. I would love to have more of a plan, and that was what we were going to start doing with my FH Street Photographers group. If you guys haven't seen that yet, go over to Facebook and join FH Street Photography group. We talk all things street photography, photography as a whole, and we set up photo walks and eventually workshops as well. But I would love to get to the point where I stake out some more places. I actually target areas. But for right now, what do? No, I walk down the street and I see things. I try to just train my eye to see things. I'm looking at light, shadow, abstract images. I'm not always looking to tell a story. I don't care about rules. I don't have any rules. So basically, I don't have a plan. I know what I'm looking for, and it's usually light, shadow, tones, and color. So if anything stands out for me, then that's where I go. As far as a random image that happens to be my favorite, I would probably have to go into my book. Yes, I made a book. I did a photo book not too long ago, and let me see if I can get into that for you guys. I just want to get into the pages so I can kind of show this the right way, because one of my favorites, X Pro 2, random shots. This is one of my all-time favorites. This was in Little Italy, Mulberry Street, walking down the road, and just saw this scene in front of me. And for me, it seems like it almost feels as though this is like a Norman Rockwell style painting, or even a Fred Herzog style scene. I liked, I don't know what I did there. I'm trying to tell you about an image and I just screwed the whole thing up. I like the way that this light is bouncing off this building and slicing through the road, this food stand. I like this interaction between the police officers and these senior citizens. I just like everything about that image. Total New York City. Same with this one. Some of my favorites over the years are in this book. This is a fun image that I really like. Um, some Cinestill work, but it's not film. This is digital. That's a digital preset that I made to create Cinestill with this halation on the lighting. It's on my website. One of my all-time favorite shots actually was in upstate New York in Tarrytown, and it's right here. Let me get to it. Oh, by the way, this is earlier when we were talking about the GFX. That's GFX ISO 1250. So, very cool. This shot. One of my all-time random favorite shots. If looked at really quickly, to me it looks like a painting. It doesn't even look like a photograph, especially from some distance. I love the... this is from my cinematic color grade tones. That's a preset pack I have on my website, and there's like 4 or 5 different color. I think there's four color tones, but that gives you this kind of look. This to me feels like Fred Herzog / Norman Rockwell type scene. Just people having lunch on the sidewalk in Tarrytown, a small town in New York, Sleepy Hollow. If anybody knows that area, this is Sleepy Hollow, New York. And this is with the X Pro 2 and the 23 millimeter, maybe? X Pro 2 23 millimeter, with my color grade overlaid. But yes, I absolutely love this image. I love the shadow on the background on this brick wall, casting down over here. The fence, you could see the scroll work. I love the interaction between this gentleman here with his hand and his leg and her so, involved in the conversation, and his dog just hanging out in the back here. There's everything I love about this photo, and I actually want to get a print made of this. It's definitely one of my favorites, and it was featured in Fuji Love magazine as well. Actually, their Instagram takeover when I did that. And really proud of this image. And again, just so random. And I have a couple different frames, but this is the one that I, pegged for editing. But a random scene, literally just walking, and shot this as I was moving, and ended up with, something that ended up being my favorite. And I think a lot of times that's how it ends up for me. A lot of times is where I don't know what I have until I get home and I start diving into it and then realizing what I have. And usually, I say it all the time, I take 1,000 bad photographs a day, but once in a while I get a good one. And I think that's the name of the game for anybody. So, no, they didn't ask me what I was doing. I'm pretty sneaky. I shoot from the hip a lot. This was not shot from the hip, but I usually don't care. I mean, I got nothing to hide. I usually don't get confronted too much. I've only been asked one time if I took a picture of somebody, and that was in New Jersey. I was on the boardwalk. I took a picture of some lady. She was sitting on a bike, and it wasn't even a good photograph. And I think like a mile down the road, she ends up coming up to me, and she's like, "Did you take my picture?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And she goes, "You can't do that." I said, "I absolutely can do that. You're on a boardwalk. You're in a public place." She goes, "Well, I don't like it." I said, "Okay, well, have a nice day." And she's like, "Well, I don't like it." I said, "Okay, you already told me. Have a good day." And I just walked away. I could have appeased her and told her I would erase it. But to be honest with you, I didn't know what I had or if I even had anything good. What I did, and walked away. I don't know. I'm not really confrontational, but of all the times I've shot in New York City and had my camera up to my eye or took pictures, I've never had anybody had an issue with it. So, yeah. So, yeah, these were just some images from the book. Again, Tarrytown, New York. This is Philadelphia. This is with the Leica in Philly. Some of these are Philly. These are Philly. Philadelphia, New York City. And again, another one of my favorite photos. I'll bring that up at the end here. Let me get through all this stuff. This is all just in the book. This one here. This is a funny story on this image. For those of you that watch any of my YouTubes, you might know this image. Excuse me. So this image here is obviously New York City, Manhattan skyline, taking the ferry back to New Jersey. And, you know, with the exception of the amazing light that came down on sunset, this is the light coming out of the west and shining onto the windows. And again, this isn't edited all that much. A little bit of vibrance, a little bit of shift in the blue, but overall, this is the way it looked. But the amazing thing about this image is this image was with a 16mm 2.8, the newer 16mm, which is a fun lens. Nothing crazy. It's small and it's reasonably sharp. But I bought it for its size and its ability to function well for video, which is what I'm using right now for video. This is the 16mm. This is what it looks like. This image was taken with an X Pro 1. ISO 800 and I think it was like f5.6, but I was standing on the ferry was still moving, we were getting ready to dock, but we were still in full movement in the ferry, and I shot it at like 1/20th of a second. So 1/20th of a second, X Pro 1 on a ferry boat moving. And I couldn't believe that it came out as sharp as it did. I was expecting it to be completely just mush by the time I got it. But again, it just reinforces my theory of we don't always need to chase the XT4 or the X Pro 3. You guys can still take amazing photos with older gear. I would rather see people spend more money investing in workshops or investing in trips to go take photography in different cities, or to ask about, lens selection, or talk about, maybe reading some photography books, rather than just going out and buying a new body because they feel it's going to improve their photography. Because to be honest with you, I don't know that any camera has improved my photography. Yes, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I do buy newer gear, but I usually recycle my gear now because I do have a lot of it, and so I'll sell cameras to buy new cameras. But the only single thing that has ever improved my photography to have to do with gear was just using it every day. Just every day, pressing the button. And I'm still not to where I want to be. I have a ton of improvement to make. A ton. I'm nowhere near what I want to accomplish. And just doing this every day is going to get me there, because it's the only thing. I've shot every camera. I really have. Everything from film. I still have all my film cameras, medium format film, medium format digital, Leica film, Leica digital, GFX, all of it. The only thing that's ever made me a better photographer is taking photography shots taking photos every day. And looking at my work, seriously looking at my work and seeing where the pitfalls land. Looking at other photographers, watching their YouTube videos, looking at the way that they look at things, listening to talks, diving in their heads and seeing what their theory is and seeing if it jives with what I think, or if I'm like, no, that's not what I would do. Critiquing my own photos, recently with this whole pandemic issue, diving into my old Lightroom catalog and looking at my photos from 4 or 5 years ago and seeing what my edits were like and what my skills were like, and saying like, yep, I could have been doing better. Let me re-edit that, and I'll re-edit an old photo and see how far I've come, because I've heard it by somebody else before and I fully agree with it, so I'm just going to recycle it. If you look at a photo that you've taken 4, 5, 10 years ago and you look at it now and you can't see any improvement, then you're not progressing as a photographer. There should be something that you may see that was a mistake or it could have been done better years down the road. And if you can't do that, then I don't know that you're progressing as a photographer. You may not agree with me. That's all fine. There's a lot of people that don't agree with me on things. But to me, for myself, if I look at photos that I took years and years ago and I look at them now, I go, oh boy, what was I doing? And the other good thing that come out of all this too, if we're trying to put a positive spin on everything, is more and more people are now talking. I see the community as a whole, just like this tonight, guys. You guys on here and having a discussion. More and more photographers are talking and less shooting. And shooting's great, but we can all say that online social media and everything is driven by photos, likes, how many followers you have. And that seems to be driving what a lot of people, that seems to be driving a lot of people and why they're doing what they're doing. They're not doing it necessarily for the love of things. They're doing it as a popularity contest sometimes. So if anything, we're getting to see who the true photographers are in the industry, because they're slowing down. They don't really have a chance to create much right now because everybody's stuck inside, but they're having these one-on-ones. I try to do Instagram Live daily. I try to have as many people on for a discussion as I can, and just talking about things, stepping off the front lines of photography and diving into the little nuances of things. And I think that's where we're starting to see a lot of difference, and we're starting to get to learn a lot about a lot of people. So I think it's a positive on that aspect of it. Van Slim 6, sometimes less is more. I spent a year with only a 5D Classic and 35 f2. It has a lot of limitations, so you have to figure out. Yes, limitations, without a doubt. I love limitations. I think limitations are some of the best things you can do to yourself to increase your talents. Again, this is hardly a limitation, but it is if you think about you're gonna get stuck with this one lens. Pick up an old camera, pick up an X Pro 1. These things, you can find these things pretty good now. Spend some money in this. You know, people say, well, why am I going to buy an old camera like that? It's not worth the money. Do you know what this can teach you? What the skills that this camera can teach you, because of its limitations, are priceless compared to buying something brand new. Buy an old 5D if you have Canon glass laying around. Buy an old 5D. And you'll learn about metering differently and making sure that you don't really, because let's face it, you can basically get close to an even exposure with this, and if you're off, you can recover so much out of this camera. If you blow an exposure with a 5D, then you blew an exposure with a 5D. It's going to let you know right away. So I think that those limitations can definitely teach you a lot more about your photography, and I think it's definitely a good way to go. So I'm trying to think what else we can talk about. We can talk about lenses. We can talk about cameras. God, I've seen a lot of people talking about this lens lately. Whether or not they should buy it. The 90 f2. The 90 f2 is a fantastic lens. Beautiful, sharp lens. Octavio Lepe. I have the X100V but picked up a 5D Classic to learn more. Yeah, there you go, man. I have the same combination. The 100V is fantastic, but the 5D will definitely teach you some lessons. And it's cheap enough too, guys. It's cheap enough where you know, like I said, right now I got two of them. Two of them right now. So yeah, they're great cameras, and they're so cheap. Like I said, you can pick them up pretty cheap. If you really want to learn about your photography, pick up a film camera. Contax G1. We did a blog article on this a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month or two ago, but that's on the webpage too. And this camera is a fantastic camera. And you get these cheap too. You can get the Contax, you can get the body for 175 to 250, and the lenses aren't that bad, and the lenses are some of the best in the world. Adapting lenses, sure. I've adapted more lenses to the GFX than anything else. I have adapted lenses when I used to shoot Sony a little bit. I've adapted lenses to my Canon EOS R. But if you want to adapt lenses to the GFX, then I would stick with Minolta lenses. This 45mm f2 adapts beautifully to the GFX, and this is literally a $30 lens. This lens has a little slight vignette, but it's very sharp and it works great on the GFX. And this is the 50mm 1.7, $30 lens, guys. And again, you can adapt this also to your APS-C Fujis, but again, $50 lens. So the deals are out there, and Minolta makes fantastic lenses. The Rokers are phenomenal lenses, so they're definitely a great lens to look into adapting. I have some nice old Minolta glass. I'd like to adapt to a Fuji. I was curious about the XT1 or the X Pro 1 to adapt. I have the MD35-1.8. I have not shot the XT1. The X Pro 1 you can obviously adapt to. It does have focus peaking, but it's not that great. The focus peaking is not that great on the X Pro 1. If you could find an X Pro 2 for a decent price, you might be better off if you're going to use it for adapting lenses. It does have peaking, but again, it's not the best. It's like kind of barely noticeable. It's really hard. But a great camera. Definitely a great camera. I'm always pleasantly surprised about the image that come out of it. The images that come out of that camera. I wish they would have made the functionality of the rear button a little bit more on the X Pro 1. It's kind of like a useless button, to be honest with you. And the viewfinder's a little weird too. It's got this diopter issue for me. It's way too it like fish eyes to me. I don't know. I can't get used to it. Sorry, I left this. I've been leaving this. Where am I? I got stuff all over the place. Oh, the 90. I'm trying to think if I have some 90mm examples for you guys. I might have it in Lightroom. Well, we can go back to the X Pro 3. The X Pro 3 is fantastic. One of my favorite images I took with the X Pro 3. Let me bring it up for you guys. Really liked either one of these, but let's just use this one for example. X Pro 3, and this was with the 35 1.4. 35 1.4. I'll give you a before shot. That's the before. That's the raw file, and that's with my color grade added to it. Yeah, the eyes are going bad. Yeah, the viewfinder is probably light years ahead of the X Pro 1. Then the XT1 is probably a lot better than the X Pro 1 when it comes to the viewfinder. Yeah, it has white peaking. You're right, and that's why it doesn't stand out that well. But I just love the style of having my eye and my face, you know. You made yours red, yeah. I believe on my V I made it red. I don't remember if I did or not. No, I made mine blue. I hardly ever use it. Yeah, I made my blue on my V, but yeah, you can. They're a lot better on newer cameras, that's for sure. But red is definitely a good pick. Another one of my favorites from the 100. This is the 27 millimeter 2.8, which again, a lot of people don't shoot this lens, the 20 millimeter 2.8, but that's a 20 millimeter 2.8 or 27 millimeter 2.8 Pancake lens. I just had it. I had it on the 100. You saw it, or on the X Pro 1 rather. 27 2.8 on the X Pro 3. Again, some manipulation of the image, obviously, but again, I'm not always trying to be super accurate to the scene with certain things like this. This was more of an artistic shot, so the before is there, and here was the after. Oh, that laid another preset on it. So that's the before, that's the after. You know, again, a shot like this. That's the after. Here's the before coming up. That's the before. So you can do amazing things with these cameras, and the same with you know, the X1, any of the X series. This is a JPEG. This is the JPEG out of the X100 X Pro 3, and this was classic negative. I find that sometimes classic negative looks the best if it's pushed down, underexposed by 1/4 to 3/4 of a stop. I think when it's at even exposure, it's not that good. It doesn't look that great. I feel like the blacks need to get crushed a little bit. And let me see. This is the... Oh, okay. This is the 23 millimeter X Pro 3, 23 millimeter 1.4 at 1.4 ISO 640, 1/900th of a second. And that was most likely because I believe dynamic range priority was enabled. Here's the before, raw file, and there's the edit. Actually, it might be this over here. Let's see. Talking about the Contax GFX, or I mean the Contax G1 compared to the Fuji X100V, it's so crazy to see how close. I mean, you can see where they derive the design from. It's crazy how close they are. You can see the dials, the knobs, the way they're laid out, uh, the overall body style, the lens design. I mean, God, it looks like a mirror image. It's crazy. Uh, why do I prefer Fujifilm over other brands? It's not that I guess I do prefer them over other brands. It all depends. I'll shoot a Canon DSLRs for work. To me, they are just tools, and they're like work tools for me. My Leica is a camera that I cherish, and it kind of brings me to the heart of photography. But I prefer Fujifilm because I'm still getting that analog feel. I'm getting the classic knobs. I know the camera easy inside and out, and I feel like it's such an easy camera to manipulate, but it inspires the most creativity from me. When I pick up a Fujifilm, I'm ready to create something, and I just enjoy that so much. I don't ever sit there and think like I don't ever feel like I'm lacking because I'm shooting an APS-C style camera. I've never gotten to that point where I felt like because I'm holding an APS-C, I'm missing out on something. I feel like my images can stand with anything using a Fujifilm. It doesn't seem like I feel like I could have gotten a better file if I had something different, if that makes sense. And I absolutely love the camera. I love the fact that the company seems to listen to the photographers for the most part. They haven't been the easiest camera company to kind of deal with at times, but yeah, I mean, I love what they're pushing out. I love their innovative designs. I don't feel like I'm shooting a computer. I think whenever I've picked up anything like Sony, I feel like I was shooting more of a computer device rather than a camera, so to speak. So I can appreciate that it still feels like a camera when I'm using it, if that makes sense. Again, I'm just going through some images of with the X Pro 3, black and white, and color photos from the X Pro 3. And this was the 18 millimeter. 18 millimeter is still a fantastic lens, man. I love everything about this lens. I wish my copy was a little smoother. My copy's a little rough, but I bought it used. So I'm trying to think what else I have on here for you guys, if I have anything else good. If you guys want to see some Leica shots, I'm going to pull those up. Leica and the Ricoh GR3. This is a Leica. It's a Leica image. Another Leica image. This is a Ricoh GR3. This is one of my favorite photos. Again, you're talking about such a small little camera, and people will mistake it for basically a crappy little toy camera, but you can pull results like this, full professional results, and it's just amazing that it comes in such a small package like a Ricoh. Fits in your pocket, and yet you can get files that give you great range and editability, if that's even a word. Editability. We'll split it up. So but by all means, guys, if you guys have questions, shoot them out, and we will definitely address them. Another Ricoh GR3 shot. This was, this isn't straight out of camera. I don't remember what preset this was, but let me see the before. Oh, I always do that. See if I can get the before. Okay, so yeah, that's the before raw file from a Ricoh ISO 5000, guys. ISO 5000 on a Ricoh, 1/25 of a second, and with an edit. Yeah, I can see that. The X100F over the GR2 is definitely, I think, a smart pick. The GR2 is amazing. I did a write-up on that as well. I did enjoy the GR2, but it was a little fiddly with all the different little buttons that it needed. And yeah, having a viewfinder is nice. It's one of my gripes on the Fuji X70. I love the X70. Beautiful camera, beautiful colors, so fun to use, but it didn't have a viewfinder, so you really you were left up to using the screen, which the screen was nice enough, but in bright sunlight it can be a problem. It is hard to shoot. I actually did an article on my blog site, vacation cameras, and I shot the X100F and the X70. I took it to Disney, and I have a whole slew of pictures from that trip with both cameras. And that was my main gripe using it in the Florida sun, was that you know, the viewfinder was just really difficult to get around. But other than that, I would love to see them do a remake of the X70 and put a much improved 18mm, even if they have to make it a little thicker, an 18mm f2, make it sharp. And I would buy an X70 all over again, because they are fantastic cameras. Let's see what else we have from the Ricoh. I have a lot of love for that Ricoh. I think it's a beautiful camera for what it does. I don't try to compete it against anything else, because I feel like it falls within its own category. That can seem silly. I have a better shot that I like more with the Ricoh, and here it is. I should have tagged this with a 5-star so it comes up. But yeah, this was a Ricoh, and this was ISO 2000 1/50th. This is just a bar in Florida, and again, the files are really nice to edit out on the Ricoh. Definitely cool. Little dodge and burning in certain spots. I think I dodged up here and down on the floor a little bit, and I think that was really about it. Everything else was pretty much the same. Obviously adding, you know, my color look to it, but if I can give you the before and after, would be see what else we have. This was the Leica 50mm Summicron. Yeah. Did I do a re-edit at that? I think I did a re-edit. Yeah, so some of these I didn't mark out, so I apologize. I'm trying to yeah, so this was the 50mm Summicron with the Leica M10. My daughter in Florida. And again, if you guys like these presets, if you like these colors and the way I edit things out, by all means, go check out the website. I have a ton of color presets that are in, you know, their own little color packs. Super cheap. I didn't make them expensive at all, and you get some different looks. And Again, they're always meant to be a starting point. They're not going to be one-click answers, but they're going to get you pretty close and give you the tones that I'm using. A lot of times I will just edit the raw file out and just make basic adjustments, but if I feel like getting creative and doing a little bit more on an edit just to put a spin on it, then these are the same color presets that I'm using. And you can edit right from there and kind of get your little spin on it. But I believe this is with my matte collection, one of the presets from my matte collection. It just puts a smoothness into the shadow areas and stuff like that, and a softness to the image without losing the sharpness where it really needs to be. So again, I don't mean to sound like an infomercial, but if you guys like what you're seeing here, then by all means, I don't have any secrets. They're right there. So this is, again, just an edit from a raw file. So this is just straight out of camera, Leica M10 with, you know, basic adjustments. Let's see if I can even get to the raw on this. Just takes a while. So that's the raw file. That's the raw file, and this is me just making some basic adjustments in the panel to give me something like this. And, you know, again, the same thing with, you know, something like this. It's just really just bringing up like some of the vibrance and moving my sliders around, my highlights and stuff like that, warming up the image. I'm color correcting, adjusting the highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks, and I'm adding a little vibrance, and I end up with something that sings a little bit more. Thank you, Octavio, about the color comment. I appreciate it. But yeah, Leica M10. And it also does an amazing job in black and white. This is a 28mm Elmerit 2.8. Very, very sharp lens. Beautiful focusing lens. So do I underexpose when I shoot? Yes, I do. Most likely, if I'm not on an even exposure, I will be under by the very most a stop, but usually a quarter to 3/4 within that window. 1/4 to 3/4 I underexpose, and I do that because I'm not so concerned about my shadows. I don't care if my shadows crush to black in certain situations, like very contrasty bright sunlight. I don't care if my shadows go black. Overcast days, I care about my shadows going too dark because I like to bring them up a little bit. But on a real contrasty, bright, sunny day, I don't care if they crush to black. And I also find that with digital sensors, unlike film, with film, you don't lose your information, you don't lose your dynamic range in the highlights. It's very hard to blow your highlights in film. However, with digital sensors, it's really hard to recover highlights. Even with all the dynamic range that they pack in, if you blow highlights, it's really hard for you to recover them in a way where they don't look too crunchy or too digital. So I find myself underexposing because it's easier to recover shadows if you really want to. You can dodge them, you can bring them up, and they're usually there, and they're usually just fine. I feel like the sensors handle shadow recovery a lot better than they do highlight recovery, so I always underexpose a little bit. Yeah, just fun. This was all just a family trip that we took to visit my parents in Florida. We go every year. It's on the East Coast, and just always an opportunity to get out and take some different photos. Ricoh. It's a Ricoh GR3 file. Again, another black and white from the Ricoh. Put that one in a window box for you guys. Always amazed by this camera. Truly am. Whenever you see the files from the Ricoh, they're always fantastic. Let me see if I can even do a before on this one. So that's the raw file from the Ricoh, which again is nice in itself. I just wanted to be more artistic with it, so I just added a color grade to it. Again, Ricoh file, and the before. Again, underexposed, but I protected my highlights, so I was able to pull up my shadows and make the light dance off the water there a little bit, to give me, kind of where I was going and what I was after. Again, a Ricoh file. And this one would be underexposed too when I give you the raw file. Here's the before. It's coming. There it is. There's the before. But you're able to pull them up. Cool thing about the Ricoh too is you can do selfies. So really easy to pull a selfie off with that lens. But you can get beautiful images from the Ricoh. More of a natural photo here, and here's the raw file from it. It's the raw file from the Ricoh, and just with my edit. These are mostly just on the beach. Some cool shots. This guy fishing. It's another cool thing about the Ricoh too, is it's dead silent. I'm standing right next to this guy. He has no idea I took his picture. I actually went down on one knee and got myself all framed up the way I wanted to, and got this image. Here's the before. It had edited out nice in color too, but I felt it needed some black and white. Able to maintain all the cloud information too, so that was cool. And a little double exposure in camera. I don't know what the before will show me, probably the color file, but I liked it better in black and white. So yep, double exposure in camera with the Ricoh. A fantastically sharp lens too, and you can close focus with it. Very close focus with the Ricoh GR3. If you can find one used, you could probably get it for $700-800, maybe even a little bit better. It's definitely a win-win camera. It's a beautiful pocket shooter. I mean, you can pull files like this all day long and post them up, and nobody's the wiser. It is a gorgeous file. But yeah, these were just some images from, I think this is a Ricoh too. Just real colorful stuff from the Ricoh. Let me see where the raw is. There's the raw file. Still really colorful. I just wanted my blues a little different. I wanted to saturate the skin tones a little bit more, so I put, and this is from my photojournalistic collection. Just gives you that National Geographic style look. So definitely cool files though. Trying to think what else. I'm literally just going through my catalog here and just seeing what I have. I don't even know what I have on some of this stuff. So, um, a lot of times I'm just doing test shots of stuff. This was so this is the Canon GFX, Canon 50 millimeter 1.2L on the GFX. You really need to crop it because it does vignette, but as far as sharpness goes, yeah, it's plenty sharp. It definitely, renders, and this it looks great. This is 1:1 on the sensor, but yeah, definitely a cool, lens, but not so great for rendering out stuff. But it looks great on the other count. It looks great on the 5D Classic. Any overheating issues with the Ricoh GR3? No, none at all. I don't shoot video on it. The video capabilities are garbage on it. You can't set up your shutter speed, or I think you can maybe do frame rates, but that's about it. But it's not a video camera. It's got no mic inputs or anything like that. But as far as shooting it, no overheating issues whatsoever. Have you heard that it had overheating issues? Because I've never heard that. Could have, but oh, these are, what is this? This is oh, again, another image from the Ricoh. So yeah, this is a Ricoh GR3 image. Again, straight out of camera. This is a JPEG. But this lens is so sharp, guys. Ricoh really they just make a beautifully sharp lens. This is obviously just the branch of a tree, but it might be hard to see because we're streaming. But I can assure you that you can't get it any sharper than that. It's crazy how sharp that image is. Got files open everywhere. This was I don't even know what this was. It might have been that's the X Pro 3. Another Ricoh shot, straight out of camera JPEG. Again, this is a nothing file. I mean, it's nothing of importance. I was just testing the lens, but I just can't get over how sharp the lens is, and I can't get over the colors of a shameless self-portrait. I can't get over how good the colors are on the Canon 5D Classic. Straight out of camera, white balance set as cloudy, but the skin tones are just fantastic. That old sensor is still magic. This is auto white balance. It has a Fuji 400H look to it, very filmic in its nature. Straight out of camera, no editing, never touched it. Just pulled the file off the card and put it on my desktop. This is with the 40mm 2.8 Pancake lens. So really cool. I love seeing that color from an older camera. This is a GFX 50 shot 63mm South Beach, Miami. Let me see. I have heard of some reviews stating that, but then again, I trust your word over. Yeah, no, I've never had any overheating issues. But then again, people have said that they're having the overheating issues with the X100V, and I haven't had that either. I never had any prompt indicators. I never had anything kick on telling me that, you know, the battery was getting too hot or the camera's getting too hot. I had to slow down and stop. Nothing. And I'm using two Ricoh branded batteries, and I'm using two off-brand camera batteries, so I have 4 batteries for it, and never a problem. The only thing that I don't like about the Ricoh GR3, and it's such, and maybe it's something in the menu, but I've went through the whole menu system, is I don't like the fact that if I pull my SD card out and put it in my computer just to look at like the JPEG files, and then I take the SD card and put it back in the camera, it always wants me to format the camera. It tells me I need to format the lens. It says SD card must be formatted. And I literally just took it out and tried to view files on a computer and then put it back in the camera. So I don't know why I have to reformat the SD card, because sometimes I'm not done shooting, or I just went out for a quick test and I don't want to download the files yet. I just want to see them real quick, and then I'm going back out, and then I have to save them all, or I have to upload what I want to keep in order to, or I have to use a brand new SD card. I just don't understand the rationale of like having to reformat every time I take the SD card out of the camera. It's stupid to me. I don't know why I have to do that. The one cool thing I liked about the camera too is that I can just touch all the menu features. So I can turn it on. If I want to get to something, I can just tap on everything and scroll it and tap on it. Yeah, it's a real pain in the butt to every time you I don't have a battery in it right now, but every time you shoot it, like the other day, well, like today, for example, I took like 20 images with it. I just wanted to test the sharpness out against something else. So I pulled up the JPEG files and I was like, oh, okay, they look cool. And then I put the camera back, I put the card back in the camera, and it wants me to format it. And I'm like, oh, well, do I want to save those images? Because if I do, I got to take it back out again. And now I got to save them in the Lightroom, and I don't know that I want to save them right now. I'd rather all do it at once. So yeah, that could be a bit annoying, and I don't know if there's a workaround. If anybody knows if there is, maybe I don't have something set up right, but I haven't seen anything that told me otherwise. So yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass. Well, you're about 2 seconds from picking one up. Yeah, they're an easy sell. I'm not trying to be a camera salesman, but you know, after watching some of the videos from Lynn Taro, and you know, a lot of guys like Sean Tucker that shoot the Ricoh GR3, it definitely is it's just a cool camera to have because it's so small. It's the smallest thing out there, and it's just so easy to pocket it and take it with you. If you don't want to carry a full camera, but you don't want to have to take cell phone pics, you're going to have a hell of a sensor, a beautiful APS-C size sensor with a gorgeous razor sharp lens. I use it a lot for product photography. I'll just pull that up real quick just to show you guys the sharpness. Again, I don't know how well it's coming over in screen right now, so it may not be coming out good at all, but you know, the sharpness of this lens, it is really astonishing. Let me get to like some of those that I took with the Ricoh. I think this is a Ricoh. Yeah, so I mean, come on, you know, that's an image with the Ricoh, you know, leather, but the macro functionality is just, it's truly amazing. It is a razor sharp lens, guys. I'm trying to think what else I have with the Ricoh. Is this the Ricoh? Yeah, this is a Ricoh. I use it all the time for product stuff. Um, Let me see. What I got? I got more that's a Ricoh. I know that. Maybe this is. Yeah, Ricoh. Um, yeah, super sharp. Great product photography. You can get super close. Beautiful lens. You can see, I mean, you can see the sharpness. And not saying that lens sharpness is everything, but it just does a beautiful job. Let's see. Oh, this is, I think, the one I put up the other day. This is the Ricoh. And again, you know, going 1-to-1 on this. This isn't macro. This is just the lens, but you can see it's beautiful. The colors and um, the sharpness of the lens. Again, um, just a just a really nice nice rendition. And again, you can shoot it pretty stable too, because it has the lens or the sensor stabilization in it too, which is nice. And that was a big thing to have over the Ricoh GR2. A lot of people missed the flash. I wasn't a big deal with missing the flash, but you know, people did like that flash. It wasn't an issue for me. But I can understand that. I mean, but you can get an off-camera, an off-brand flash for it, and it works pretty well. All right, let's go to. All right. Well, guys, we've been going for quite some time now. I think I'm going to shut this one off. 2 hours. I truly appreciate it. Thank you all for joining the live chat. I'll try to do more of these. YouTube has not always been the most favorable platform for me. Usually Instagram is where I spend most of my time. Sorry, that was Godjin. Let me see. So I'll bring this over. And I'll just bring this screen. So here's my, if those of you haven't followed me over on Instagram, please consider doing so. I post images daily on Instagram, and I always show what I'm using and talk about the gear that I'm using. You can always hit me up on there. I'm going to try to do more chats on YouTube, especially from last night and tonight, where I really got a good response, and I appreciate it. That kind of keeps me motivated to kind of explore this platform a little bit more. So, you know, definitely reach out to me and give me any ideas that you would like to discuss, and we can definitely do that. And like I said, I appreciate everybody that came here tonight and joined in the discussion. Please leave comments below. And again, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of videos on different gear on the channel right here, as well as heading over to Joseph D'Agostino Photography and visiting the blog. Like I said, there's a lot of information and in-depth reviews, and I write a lot on the blog and a lot of photo examples that you can pull up, you know, full image files. And again, if you like the colors that I use and the way I edit, we have some editing videos, and we also have the color grades too. So you know, consider taking a look at those. I'm just reading these last comments. Daniel, thank you. Thank you, Van Slim 6. If I said that wrong, I apologize. Thank you so much. Marlon, thank you. I will definitely keep going with the videos as long as you guys are into it. Sorry if it was a little rusty. I'm not used to doing these live chats. I try to keep it as interesting as I can, but the questions really help motivate the conversation, as you guys know. Octavio, thank you. And for everybody else that was on and didn't comment or anything like that, thank you so much for joining in and at least watching. And spread the word, and we'll be doing more, okay? All right, guys, thanks again. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.